Here's another quick video on my 2010 KTM 530 EXC. The reason I want to make the video today is because I made some modifications to make it fit me better. I'm about 6'4", and the first thing that I did was to install these bar risers and move the bars all the way forward. That helped quite a bit, but still I felt like when I was standing up, my hands felt like they were right next to my thighs. I didn't have a lot of triangulation when I was standing up on the bike. And so the next thing I want to try here is installing some lowered foot pegs that also move the boot position rearward. So I've already taken the original foot pegs out. That's what the mount looks like. But the foot pegs that I'm going to use are these made by Vanasche Motorsports. And these are pretty nice units. You can see that they're CNC'd out of stainless steel and then TIG welded, it looks like by hand, which is not something you see very often. So I'm pretty excited to try these. However, on the website, they were listed as being for the KTM 690, Husky 701, 700, 1090, 1290 KTMs. They were not specifically listed for the 525 EXC, 530 EXC, or the 500 EXC. So I reached out to Vanasche Motorsports, got a quick response from the owner, Andrew. We talked back and forth a little bit. Ultimately, I sent him some pictures of the mounting area on mine, and he said, yeah, they should fit. So he went ahead and sent these to me, asked me to install them without the spring at first, just in case I needed to return them. And so what I'm doing today is finding out if they do fit. Here's the original hardware that I removed with the OEM foot pegs. You can see that the actual cotter pins that hold everything together got pretty mangled on removal. Fortunately, the Vanasche Motorsports package came with some new ones. So I'll reuse these main pins, and I've got a trick I'm going to show for clamping these springs for installation, and I should be able to reuse everything except for these cotter pins. Here on the right side of the bike, I've got a foot peg installed just with the original pin but no spring, just to see how it fits, and it seems like everything's working like it should. You can see that some special accommodation has been made to allow the foot peg to fold up and rearward, just like OEM. I'm going to go ahead and install the spring and really see how everything works, but so far so good. So here's an idea a friend of mine gave me for how to close up these springs and help with installation. I'm going to use a zip tie routed through the two ends of the spring and brought back together, and together with a wrench. And what I'm going to try to do is to close up this spring and then tighten the zip tie so that it's held closed, and that should let me insert everything a little bit more easily. The thing is, I'm not exactly sure how to get this closed and zip tied at the same time. So everyone, here's your PSA. Be careful with springs. Obviously you've got tension that can make them release and go flying, but wear your eye protection for sure.
A few moments later.
Okay, here's a fresh attempt. I'm going to try and use this clamp here with some rubber pads on it and see if I can get the spring clamped together, and then I'm going to slip a zip tie around it. Slip it around there. Keep going. Okay, so now the zip tie is around the ends of it. I'll release the clamp, and there you go. We have a spring which is held closed enough for installation. So I'll just do that one more time. Well, the spring has to be closed up even more.
More moments later.
I've decided on a new way of getting the spring even tighter. Start with my spring tied the way it is, and then inserting a zip tie this way. And then this is only possible since the zip tie is holding it closed across these two wire parts. Now I can insert another zip tie across the two loop parts, and this should hold, yeah, just like that. And I'm not even having to use any tools, but just pulling it tight. So now things are a bit precarious. I'm going to be extra careful, but I'm going to cut off this intermediate section here. There we go. So now the spring is just held by the ends there. So again, insert it into the foot peg. Now that there's plenty of room, this should be a lot easier. So put the foot peg into the mount, pin into the foot peg, pass it through the spring, and we're through. Great, so now everything is contained. So with that done, now I can take one of my washers, place it on the bottom, and finally one of the cotter pins, and place it through the main foot peg pin. And then I will, this may not be possible to catch on camera, but I'm going to use pliers to pull this cotter pin apart and wrap it around. Now finally, with the foot peg completely installed, what I can do is bring it up and put some pressure on the spring manually through the foot peg, then cut this zip tie, bring it down. Now we're fully installed and the spring is in place. And look how well that works. It's really solid, doesn't move at all. Works just as well as OEM. I'm really excited to try this thing out. The first ride after installing these foot pegs was with a buddy of mine on his 500 EXC out to Pozo OHV area here on California's Central Coast. Trails were steep, wet, and loose, so I was standing on the pegs a lot. I could immediately feel an improvement in stability and reduction in effort it took to ride standing up. With my hands higher and forward and feet lower and rearward, I could move around the bike and move the bike around much more easily. We had the whole place to ourselves and left amazed as always at what these machines are capable of. While there's lots to love about the fuel-injected 500 I was riding with, the new body positioning, easier shifting, and more controlled rear braking made my 530 feel like a whole different machine. Here are some pictures of my buddy's 2017 500 EXC where KTM changed the pivot pin angle on the mounts. So they're not the same as that which was used on EXCs through 2016, as well as the 701 and other bikes that Vanasche listed for these foot pegs. So here are the foot pegs on a Husqvarna 701 Enduro. This is one of the bikes that these foot pegs were made for. The rider here is about my same height, around 6'4", and wearing a 13. Why don't you throw your boot up there and show how they fit? As you can see, these foot pegs really make it a lot easier to reach the gear shifter, both for upshifts and downshifts. Go ahead and slip your foot underneath there. Both of us found that with the lowered peg, it's easier to make that connection. And here's the 530 EXC, more of a dirt bike enduro boot. I think they're 12, and on the brake side, similar. I have a lot more control, whereas before I was way up here and had to tip down quite a bit to find that brake, and it ended up just being a stomping situation. So I like how they're fitting on this 530. Seems to be just as well as that 701. Back on the left side, the shifting side of the 530, you can see that the shifter gives lots of room to get the foot underneath it. That's what I like about these the most. I've got lots of places I can step my foot down and find a good purchase on the pedal, but mainly really easy to get underneath that shifter and put it back down. With the stock pedals, these boots just had to be bent down so far, it was really awkward. So I'm really liking how they fit, bottom line. So if you're a taller guy looking for better riding position and better boot placement, or your shifter was already maxed out like mine was, check out the Vanasche website. I'm using the 1-inch 25mm drop rally foot pegs. I'm on a 530 EXC, but they should also fit the 525 or 450 from the same era, and the 500 EXC through 2016. I'm not affiliated in any sort of way, just a happy customer. Thanks to Andrew at Vanasche for working with me to find out if these would fit, and thanks for watching.